see the protagonist. He's a humble protagonist. He's a tortured soul, and you know my feelings on tortured souls. He's sad about nothing. So whatever.
Where
Let's
are we?
move on.
Sake.
But that's what I felt like in The Craft. They're all sad about nothing, effectively.
Where are we in the movie? Is this where you have to have his old song and stuff?
So he's just now going to the song. So he goes, "Hey, what's up, Bone Daddy?" That part has just happened. Um, and if you're listening to this lovely podcast, by the way, we also you can view it. We have the
Chime in, guys.
Derry and Darren can't see the movie clip that I'm playing at the moment. Maybe you guys should open up Twitch and then just take a look to see what scene I'm at. Because basically we're at the moon scene now, where he's walking into the graveyard, and we get na,
I have to
na,
say,
na, na.
this is one of the most like beautifully like drawn out, made up in like even in Tim Burton's mind. I'm pretty. I hope to God this is exactly what he had envisioned, because if it's not, and if he like, I don't think it was. Man, I've seen this image more than I've seen any other image in my fucking life. This image, that curve on that mountain,
Yeah.
and that big, huge, oversized moon. Derry, you have to say, is this not the most beautiful fucking
It's
image
the
ever?
iconic. It's the iconic
There's
image.
people who've had weddings to this fucking movie. They've had like Nightmare Before Christmas themed weddings, which I didn't realize was a thing. And there's in Norway, there's a place where there's a certain like hill that's curved like that, not as curved,
Yeah.
but there's and like they put up this couple put up a huge backdrop that was like nearly a skyscraper size of a moon,
Wow.
and they took their pictures in front of it. It was fucking amazing.
Well,
Like
all of
it's
this is taken from the visual, um, the from the visual stance of the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Like all of these weird
yeah, you were
aspects
saying.
about distances, about things coming off into a point. It's all well, actually. This kind of mountain thing that moves, it looks like it's kind of
Yeah,
alive. Reminds me of like a Beetlejuice thing as well. So it's like this combination.
yeah.
Isn't that a Tim Burton rule? If it's a right angle, that's a wrong angle.
Hey, well there you go.
I think that's like one of his rules.
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense, specifically because it's German impressionism basically.
Yeah.
So it's very abstract, haunting. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but in the context of it all together, it
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
a very abstract picture. I love all of, like, you can watch the entirety
Yeah.
of A Nightmare Before Christmas, and you'll see all of these angles. You see the shadows coming down into weird pits, like the way that
Yeah.
the ground is curved and angled and everything.
I've
Very well done.
swept the very bravest off their feet. Like even taking off his head and the whole, like they were saying to Shakespeare, like it's all done so fucking beautifully. Like as I said to you earlier, there's not one, that's very rare for me. There's not one song in this movie that I don't love. I love every single I love even the music, the background music of this fucking playing. It's so fucking good. It's so good.
But like I
But
said
then
before, it's an old musical style. That's not a
yeah,
90s musical style. That's not the 80s. It's not the 70s. You got to go back to proper classical Fred Astaire, or these, like you said,
yes, yeah,
vaudeville kind of, or vaudeville kind of big epic films with like
yeah.
dastardly villains with little
Yeah,
rapiers and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. This is the type of
Well, like,
music is here in
we've been
those.
saying that for years. Myself and Derry have been saying that for fucking years. If we had all the money in the world and we could make that, we said this a long time ago, that we would put this on stage. This should have been. This
Great,
is
great
so
point.
made for a fucking stage musical play. It would have been like, I can't understand, because it's Disney, especially with Frozen being on stage and stuff. I can't understand. This is like something that's like an underlying gold mine that should be done
Right.
on stage.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's a fuck-
surprised. I'm not surprised that if they had already done that. I've seen a lot of
They never,
interpretations of it.
they never did. They have the characters at the meet and greet and stuff, and like
Yeah.
the characters are great, and like, but they never had the stage show. And I could never. We obviously, myself and Derry had a conversation with this ages ago. This would be a sellout show. It'd be
Hmm. Oh, Darren's gone.
Anyway, yeah, it would be amazing to put on, but expensive. Like, wow.
Well, expensive, yeah, but I don't think you'd be able to do it necessarily in terms of doing it properly. Like a Jack Skellington, the guy is like a stick figure.
Yeah,
You know, I think you'd be able to get a lot of the sets to look fantastic in it.
yeah,
The way that you would transition from set to set would be fantastic as well. But that's what I'm talking about. It's the film is basically based on an old musical film, like a stage
yeah,
theater. And where did those old musical films come from? Stage. So it's a great introduction for people, I think, to musicals at a young age, effectively, with some really good concepts. But all of these concepts can only be done really in that kind of a musical. A lot of the exposition, let's say, is done in music form. Um, it is done through singing.
yeah. And there's a really good reason for that. And you haven't seen the documentary that we were talking about on Netflix. The reason for that is it took forever to get a script. There was no script. This guy that they hired was not writing the script. So they just said to Danny Elfman, just start writing songs. These are the main areas of song. Just start writing songs. So in essence, Danny Elfman wrote the movie because his stories, when they eventually fired the guy, the scriptwriter, and got someone else in, it was basically just the dialogue is stitching together the songs.
And that's a pretty cool way of doing it if you think about it. Overall, the steps of the movie itself are fairly traditional. Hero, he's like an unwitting hero. He gets himself. He's not even a hero. He only becomes a hero at the end of the film. And that's what I have a problem about the character. Effectively, the the fault, he doesn't have any faults, and he doesn't really have any personality, and it's difficult to like him.
Yes.
And you're just presumed to have to like him. But 90% of the film is just him doing what he wants to do,
Yeah.
until literally the 10% where he goes, "Oh no, I've been doing it all wrong all along."
Yeah. Now, and actually, I totally agree. Like, you watched this when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, I watched this when I was a kid.
Yeah. I did see it when I was a kid, but I was pretty bored by it, I'll be honest. And I know this sounds really weird considering my previous picks. This
Right.
should be like top of my list of movies. I was really bored by it because by that stage, Dark Crystal was my favorite movie. So Nightmare
Fantastic
Before
movie.
Christmas was like a step backwards for me in terms of like kids horror. So I never kind of got into it. So the only time I started paying attention to it was as an adult. And like you said there, it's like, what? Why do I like this guy? Why am I supposed to like this guy? You know?
He isn't a likable character, in fairness. He doesn't really have any things to be positive about, and even at the very end, he basically turns around and he's like, "Oh, all this stuff happens to me, and I always get it wrong." And it's like, "You know what? I'm going to take my revenge. I'm actually going to steal Christmas." And I'm like, "Wow, God, you've made a drastic turn there." So,
Yeah.
so we're going in while Darren is, sitting there frozen. Oh, he's still alive, everybody. He just freezes up sometimes like that in real life. Um, we it's a lament. I don't know actually what the name of the song is, but it's a very sad song that you wouldn't get necessarily in kids' films nowadays either. Everything has to be a very upbeat, or even if it is sad, it's very flashy. This is a very slow song. This is like a
Yeah.
sweeping song, and there's not a lot going on if you think about it either.
Like if I think of like I've seen a lot of Disney movies and a lot of kids musicals at this stage, and you're right, like the slow songs and the sad songs, there's still something very dramatic, and it's still that Disney stage musical sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
vibe of it, where you still get the like big. It's dramatic and it's dynamic and it keeps you engaged. Whereas, yeah, this is much more kind of melancholy, which
It's like
you wouldn't be used to. Yeah, but
it's like,
even that,
wow.
it's still like it still explodes afterwards.
But
Whereas this
that's
kind of
that's in the voice.
yeah,
It's not the fact that the moon is huge and it's glittering in the background, or he's on this mountain, or Zero is flying around him, or anything. It's the character, the voice brings the
yeah,
the, the scene up. So again, I feel like if it was a Pixar movie, they'd be driving through the city and things would be happening. Even though it's a sad song, they'd be like maybe on a skateboard or whatever, and they're like doing flips and kick flips, and there's people zooming
yeah,
past, and
much more kind of dynamic and engaging.
exactly. Like the audience has ADD basically.
Yeah.
So at this point now, we get more confirmation that Sally is kind of infatuated with Jack. She's kind of stalking him a bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. He doesn't really know anything or care about Sally at this point in the movie.
Yeah, and that's another thing as an adult watching the movie. You're kind of like, girl, move on.
Right? It's like you've gone from this really crappy abusive relationship to basically falling in love with someone that doesn't even know you exist.
Yeah.
And really the only real way that he knows you exist is because you get yourself captured and then he saves you. If you weren't there, it just would have been him and Santa.
And he just wants you to make his clothes at the end of the day.
Right? He's like, yeah, you can make my clothes, bitch. I love that part. Oh, I just want you to make my clothes.
So where are we? Where Sally is looking past the gravestone.
Well,
and again,
Sally's
just big doe-eyed and kind of like, oh, he's so amazing.
Well, that's the thing about the movie. That's basically all she does. Like, think that he's so amazing and what a fantastic guy this Jack is. He basically leaves the town. He's like in his own head the whole entire time. He's very artistic. And again, that kind of reminds me of like this thespian. He's self-obsessed.
Yes.
A bit. Yeah. I know a little bit about that. I can speak to that. He's just like, what? Like, all these people find me so brilliant in the town. I'm the most popular person. The mayor is coming to me asking me for advice, and yet
it's so boring.
But it's so boring, exactly. Like, really, what's the point of me living anymore? And again, it's that part where I'm like, ooh, a little bit narcissistic, Jack. He has a little bit of an anger there, but we move along, and again, we're only about 10 minutes into the movie, and we've already had about 2 songs. 2 really, really, really good songs. And I have to say, all the songs in this are pretty much amazingly well done. For the most part, I could pretty much sing all of them.
Right. Go ahead. We got time.
DMCA, I'm sorry, we'll get taken down. I was clearing my throat.
Yeah.
Skip that one. So, we have the love interest already introduced. We see the infatuation all nicely summed up in 6 minutes. Congratulations, Tim Burton. You've done it again. I think we were about 10 minutes or something like that into Beetlejuice, and same thing.
You know exactly where you stand and kind of where the story is kind of heading.
Now, you couldn't do something like that within like The Craft or The Crow or anything. There's a few more concepts going on in there, but that just tells you these kind of films with high concept ideas. The Craft did a better job of it by lowballing it and keeping everything no exposition, where The Crow gave no exposition but no meat. And Nightmare Before Christmas does a great. You know what? It pads it out. The exposition is in the music that you're singing along to, and you've learned the story. By the time that he basically goes into the forest, like he basically wanders off into with Zero, and Sally is having a bit of a whinge. Not really too plus that she has to probably go back to her abusive, wheelchair-bound psycho husband, and decides to poison him. Snatches up a few little bits off of her grave, and it goes to poison him again.
Obviously a regular thing because she has, assigned jars for these ingredients.
Right? It's like, oh, how am I going to poison him again? And it's like this weird, again, one of those relationships where you're like, I think both people need to get away from each other. And she's clearly wanting to do it, and he's just being a really creepy, over-lipped kind of doctor-y guy. Jack goes into the forest, and then the mayor calls the next day. And I love the mayor. That spinning head of his.
Yes.
What a cool little, I suppose, characteristic for a character to have. For, I suppose, the mayor to have. He's a two-faced politician.
Yeah, exactly. An interesting commentary on
right? And even like his faces change depending upon the emotion at the time of whatever event. Again, not a lot of development needed to be done on that. It's just that that's a fun character. All of these characters are
Yeah.
really fun, and it's not like I need to know any more about them.
That's it. And as a kid, that's just a really cool, interesting thing. As an adult, you're like, I see what you did there.
So, yeah, well, two-faced politician. Again, that's not something I thought about until I was watching it now,
Yeah.
like the other day. But very well done, and again, adult themes in children films actually work really well in them because they're abstract enough for kids to think that they're fun and kind of on the nose enough for most adults to get.
Yeah. But it's why Disney are so successful because I mean, for a kid to watch a movie, you want the adult to want to watch the movie too, and to watch it again, and to watch it together, and to over and over. So you need to have those adult things in there and those things that keep parents engaged because that's what's going to make the child interested, which is going to make the parent buy the stuff for the child, you know.
Well,
So Disney have that formula down.
here's where I think modern films have gone the wrong approach because what they tried to do then was where they were thinking, right, we have adults, films for adults that kids can't watch, and then we have films for kids that we need adults to be interested in, so they need to be intelligent, but really they're for kids, you
Yeah.
know. So how about we take the movies that are for adults, dumb those down enough that kids are allowed to watch them. They have
Yeah.
the characters are adult characters. The themes are adult themes, but it's all so diluted that kids are allowed to watch them because it's a PG-13, let's say.
And that's it. And Deadpool is a classic example of that, of like Disney taking over and wanting Deadpool to be like a PG-13 at least.
But that was a big story that it was an R-rated film. Like back in the 80s, every second adult film was an R-rated film, and nobody had any problems with going to
I
see those.
still judge a horror movie by the rating it gets.
Like a PG-13 horror
If a
movie, you're like,
I'm like, no, I don't want to watch that. If it's an 18 or an R-rated or whatever the country's rating is, I'm like, yes, I need to see this.
I say R rating, it's 18s over here. Like when you went into the video shop and you seen that little red octagon kind of a thing, you're like, ooh, an 18s film. And they always had like 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy. There were always those painted portraits or caricatures of the actual actors
Yeah.
on the video art, which I thought was really cool as well. And they always attracted me as a kid because I was like, wow, those looked really cool and there's lots of stuff going on. The films were never like the cover art because, you know, the explosions and everything don't happen all at once. They happen over a course of a period of time. So, we move on to the mayor trying to knock in at Jack. And... Sorry.
Thought I lost you as well. I was like, I can't do this on my own.
So
Darren is like wiped out.
Darren is wiped out. Sorry, again, I've lost my co-star here, so it's I'm gonna have to support all of this on my own, everybody. Episode 5, I'm in the sweats. So we move on to the mayor. So we find out that the mayor, literally the day after Halloween has happened, going, got a plan for next year. Like, Jesus Christ. I know, I kind of empathize with Jack at that point. It's like, for fuck's sake, can we just not like have 2 minutes without Halloween? That would have been a fun concept. Not have him go to Christmas Town, but just have him being pissed off at the whole Halloween thing. You know, he doesn't actually leave for the forest, but he's just like, you know, I'm sick of Halloween. Let's just not do it this year.
Actually, yeah.
Skipped. That would have been the adult version, where he just sits around and drinks all day.
Conflict.
The mayor flips out and falls down a bunch of stairs, which is great because he rolls down them. Jack finally, after wandering for hours and hours and hours, finds himself in the middle of this forest, and he's like, oh God, I must have been asleep, I guess, or not even realize where I was walking. Now, we're straight into the forest with all of those cool doors on the trees. So this is where we get a little bit of a what happened in Existence. So remember when they went into the game and then they were given pods, to go into another game, but in that game they ended up coming back to the video shop that they went into the game in.
Okay.
That's what's happening here. So how did Jack go from Halloween Town to Earth? Like, he needs to go to a door. Like, is this Earth? Or does he have to go to the Earth door? There's no Earth door. So is this Earth where he is? So which door does he go into to get to Earth?
It is Earth, as far as I know, because doesn't Santa say peace on Earth and goodwill to all men?
But
that's when you get the clue. Oh, maybe it's not just this magical land.
But if he's on Earth, then so are all these trees in different forests around the planet?
That's the weird. I can't answer that.
These are the questions that I ask. Darren needs to be here to answer these.
He's back here
for him to say, "Oh, you're taking it too seriously, man." I'm thinking, right? I'm in the middle of, or 15 minutes into this kids' film, and I'm thinking, are they even on Earth? So we rush along to him scanning through some of the doors. One of the doors is a Valentine's Day door. What the hell is happening behind there? Am I right?
Pornhub themed.mp3.
Right, I bet that tree opens up into Italy.
Italy?
Yeah, they're known for or France.
Okay.
Are people too modern now not to know that, like, the French and the Italians are all world famous lovers?
Okay.
What do you mean? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
as a woman, would you say a French or Italian man would be the world's greatest lover?
I mean, the Spanish kind of have that reputation,
right?
Too, but we're definitely digressing here now.
We are digressing. This is what happens when Darren isn't here. We don't get to talk about the movie. I just start rambling on.
Sexy men instead.
Sexy men. Let's talk about some sexy Italian men. So ultimately, we move on to him coming back to the Christmas tree. And popping into the Christmas tree, we get a little hint of the music. Bum 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 bum. This is why, again, it's a musical, like a stage musical. You get that kind of the setup for the song. Like, the setup for Sally's song is we've already gone past that. When, that, when they were playing the three guys.
It's less songs and more themes for each area or each emotion or each character.
Exactly. Like, something like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, you don't necessarily get that a lot, except for and that's a running theme throughout the whole entire film. But for the majority of it, when a song happens, it finishes, and then we're on to the next bit. Whereas the whole film is contained within all of the songs within the film are hinted to before that, and are kind of each character's theme almost. Like this Christmas song is almost like that kind of Halloween song. It had the same beats and everything, so it's kind of Jack's song.
And I wonder, is that more a testament to Danny Elfman's inexperience at the time?
Maybe, because
like, as we were saying, he pretty much shot himself when he was asked to do this, because this is the first thing he'd ever done, aside from punk band.
I love that.
Well,
I love that. Like, he was in a punk band. Just like, I can write children's film.
Yeah, you got to go back and watch that documentary. It's really, really interesting. But
I feel bad now. If I had watched it, I'd see. Maybe I should have watched it, because Darren isn't here any longer. We don't have the content. You can tell me all about it.
But yeah, like, it could be a case where he went back and watched as many musicals as he could to kind of get the feel, and maybe that's why it has that old musical kind of
absolutely
formula to it, I guess.
Because technically, at this point, what musicals had come out in 1993? You are looking back 30 years for proper classical musicals.
Yeah, like, you're still only looking. It's really only Disney doing it at that point.
No, and that's why I don't think the songs in this are not kids songs. They're old adult, like, they would be Fred Astaire movie types, or something that your parents would watch. The music in this has that style, like a gangster movie at the end with the casino and Oogie Boogie. That's not a kid's song. You know, you know, that big band music and stuff. You don't get that in songs for kids, not especially not in the 90s. So that's maybe a really good point, that Danny Elfman trying his best to do a good job with
Sort of
emulate these kind of musicals at the time, or the popular musicals at the time.
Yeah.
So we're straight then into Jack falling into the tree. How did they get out of there? Anyway, so, okay, now I'm just being I'm being, what is it, facetious.
He's asking questions again.
Where's the ladder, Derry? If he fell out of the sky into a load of snow, how did they get out of there, right?
I had much more answers for the craft. I do not have the answers. Sorry. This is Darren's territory.
I'll just ask you about the craft. We get a fantastic scene of Christmas. I think it's probably one of the best Christmassy scenes in a movie. I think it's just done so well. Mostly elves.
Yeah.
But it doesn't spend a whole lot of time on anything specific, and it kind of just shifts you around. Like that's like you get to see that once pretty much for the whole entire film, and it sticks with you. And that's kind of your bit of Christmas, basically. You know, came out in November. That's your little bit of Christmas. What do you think about that song? Do you like it?
The What's This song?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I like it. It is the song of the movie for me. And I don't know, I think it's his turning point, I guess, as well, as far as story goes.
This is pretty much the end of, coming towards the end of the oh no, we're pretty much in the start of the first act, or second act.
Like it's where
we're towards the end. Sorry, we're towards the end of the first act, because basically, yeah, this is where we're seeing Jack come to the realization that this is what is missing from his life.
Yeah, there's more out there. There's more, like, I love the way he's like looking under beds, going, "Oh, there's no monster under here," and you know, all the things that he expects in his own world. But he doesn't quite, you know, he sees that there's, you know, color and brightness and stuff. And the whole song is basically his eyes being opened.
I'm going to get you to call Darren, and I'll keep on chatting away. Darren, get your Darren phone out.
You could hear me from my front door. I'm not gonna lie.
I believe he's on Skype again. You just might need to give him a call.
To add him in.
Add him in, and we'll do some jiggery pokery as I walk along there. So yeah, effectively, you know, we're down towards the end of the first act, and we kind of have our character inspiration effectively. What I do enjoy about it is that it pretty much ends on a song. It's a really good song. This is where I start to probably not like Jack as much, because then he basically is trapped in a bubble of his own people for the whole entire time, and he sees this place as a wonderful place, but his instant thing is that it's like this conflict that this movie has, where they say terrible in a positive light. So they get that parade was simply terrible. Oh, it was gross and everything. Yeah. But then they use terrible for things that are genuinely terrible. So it kind of gives me a kind of a misunderstanding of, is Jack happy that these things are missing from under the bed, or is he like, does he like the safety of this Christmas place, or does he think this is a great look for my thing? Like, is he stealing it, basically? Is he pulling a Thomas Edison?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. Especially like when he starts kidnapping, it's like, I'm taking over. Kidnap Santa. Yeah, I'm going to take this now.
But that's the thing, like,
yeah, but that's when I really start to go, why do we like this guy?
That's pretty much it. Like, at the start you were thinking, oh, there's something lost in his life, and clearly, you know, he clearly is sick of Halloween. But then he just goes to this other place and goes, I know how to make it even better by stealing these guys' idea.
Yeah.
So when we get to the next part, it's a very long song. I can't actually. Jesus, that was about 4-minute song. And all of the songs are pretty long in this, actually.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot to do with, like I said, them not having the script. The scriptwriter basically just went, nah, not doing it.
Yeah, just make it up as I go along. Like, I can have an 8-minute song if I wanted,
So,
effectively.
like, Danny Elfman basically wrote. I think he might have written the lyrics with Tim Burton, actually. I'm not sure.
He did. He must have written Simpsons before this, but that was like a TV series, I suppose. It wasn't that.
The theme.
The theme.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was the score, I think, that he said in the documentary that he was more worried about scoring a whole movie. Like.
Yeah. Well, that's a massive undertaking, especially if it's like you're the only person doing it all. When the mayor basically goes around and I believe he tells everybody, yeah, Jack's gone. We're missing Jack, and everything is horrible. Jack comes along eventually. He speeds along. Oh no, wait. We're just before that part. He's looking around for Jack, and then we get Sally, about to poison the soup. So we come along to her basically gathering some of those herbs that she had gotten a little while beforehand.
Deadly nightshade.
Deadly nightshade and frog's breath. And I love her, like, all of the mixing of the soup and everything. All of this really well done. This kind of stop motion animation. The sounds, the little bits. The way that she actually walks.
Said that actually sounds, because that was something I actually missed in this movie. I don't feel like there's a lot of Foley work done in it.
What do you mean?
It's not too obvious if there is. I just think there's a lot of places where you would expect to hear things. And I think where it first struck me, my last watch, was when she takes the thread out of her arm.
Mm.
And I'm kind of like, you didn't hear anything there. You didn't hear like a thread running through something, or and that kind of struck me for the rest of the movie. Then I was like, there's a lot of like little action sounds missing throughout.
Yeah, and do you mean like these people that are I think I've seen like documentaries about them, the 2 or 3 people like in a room watching the film, and they have like a pair of shoes.
Oh yeah, like
people are yeah, exactly. 2 coconuts, right?
Yeah, the Foley.
What are they called?
It's a Foley artist.
That's a Foley artist. Wouldn't that be a great movie to write? It's a movie about 2 Foley artists.
I'd watch it. I love that.
That would be a really good film. I'll write that down, everybody. Don't steal my idea.
But that struck me. It's just when you said sounds there, I was like, it's interesting that you said that, because I found it the total opposite. I thought there was a lack of those kind of sounds.
And it is quite a silent film in every other respect, really. Like you said, there isn't a whole lot there. The sounds that they do are really well done, but now that you say it, there is a lot of silence in the film.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, is kind of, maybe does it add to it, maybe it certainly doesn't take away from it.
It's not that it's silent, because there's like ambient music or whatever, but there's no ambient sounds.
Yeah.
And there's very little, like there's, after I realised that there was like a bug running across the floor, like quite a large bug.
Yeah.
And you could hear the little scuttling noises, but at the same time it was really, really low.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, that's something I think you should actually hear, and that would be much more effective if you heard that going across the floor,
Well, again, I think the way that technology has come across, you can actually emulate the way that sound goes across and everything. Like, that would just be done so much easier nowadays, where back in the day, you'd probably have to record, like, that sound specifically. You wouldn't necessarily be able to digitally emulate that kind of a thing.
But it is still done physically. A lot of it is still done manually. So, and especially like something like Nightmare Before Christmas, which was very physical and very like traditional methods.
Mm-hmm.
It's unusual that, to me, it feels like they kind of fell down on that. Like they didn't think about that as much.
Exactly. And again, that's where I think, you get kind of a corporate angle from it, because there's a lot of these things where they go, look, we can do without it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure if more time was to be spent on it, what they should do is kind of a remaster. Well, didn't they do a remastered version?
Well, I don't know. I watched it on Disney Plus, so whatever I watched was the most recent.
Yeah, like you think those are kind of the things you want to be remastered, to upscale to add in small little bits, little background noises. Those would be really good remasters,
Yeah.
but they generally don't go that way, and they end up probably, we'll just take out that character, or we'll change the way he looks completely. That's a remaster.
Yeah.
So we get the cool part, and I always liked it as a kid, the spoon. So we're into Act 2 now. We're about 18 minutes in, and we have that Franken doctor being served up that soup that she was basically making for him. And he goes to drink some of it, and he's like, "Yeah, I want you to try it first. I don't trust you." So she goes, "Yeah, why not? Okay." And then drops the spoon, and then picks this spoon out of her sock. It's like she's done this 150 times before. Like, she knows the trick. She's like literally planned it out. Like, she's probably even knew that he was going to tell her to drink some. Like, all of this is kind of assumed, but it's like she's just going through the ringer.
Yeah.
And I like that. It's like the world existed before we came into the movie, and I always like to see that in a movie where you're like, yes, this is a routine.
Yeah.
We don't need her to be there going, "Oh no, I need to make the soup really quickly," and then putting a spoon with holes in it in her sock in the kitchen or whatever.
Yeah.
Or taking out the trusty spoon with the holes in it. It's just all there.
And again, it's Tim Burton not patronizing you.
Yeah. No
and
patronization.
This is the story. You can understand it from this much. You don't need me to patronize you with dialogue.
So, after she takes a faking sip with her holes in her spoon, she goes, "Num num 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 num," and the doctor goes, "Yeah, fuck that. I don't even need a spoon." So just completely gulches the whole thing down. Delighted for it, and then he's gonna have a little bit of a snooze afterwards. I love the vampires in this, by the way, because they have like little umbrellas.
I love it.
They're so creepy the way they move around, and the way their heads and everything move. Like, they get every character really well done. The witches in this are really well done as well.
Yeah.
None of them are human. And funny thing about this is it kind of reminds me of that cartoon Peanut with Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah.
Is it called Peanut?
Peanut.
Maybe it's just called Charlie Brown. You never see the adult's face.
Oh yeah.
Like, you hear the voices in this one, but you never see the adult's face. You see all the kids' faces. You see Santa's face. You see everybody else's face, but it's always like, even there's a part in it where the presenter is like reading the news. You never even see her face, which is, I always thought was really fun. And it kind of made it feel more like a kids movie as well. Not actually ever seeing an adult in it.
Yeah.
Technically. So Jack arrives back. He comes back with all these presents, and he called a town meeting. And the whole point of it is that he wants to find out, technically, the meaning of Christmas. Jack wants to find the meaning of Christmas. And he does it in a very cold and dead and scientific way. But we have the cool little song beforehand where he's talking about Sandy Claus. I love that part. So he's up on stage. He's talking about how there's this wonderful place with these little people that run around. He kind of tries to at the start he's like, "This is a present and it has a bow and everything is nice about it," and all the audience are like, "Okay, what's in it? Is like, is there a head in the present? I don't understand anything. What the hell's the deal with the bow?" So nobody likes it, and Jack is trying to convince all of these people to go along with it. Again, it's not heavily implied, but it's like he's not doing that for their benefit. He's doing that so they'll just go along with everything. He's not like, "This will make the town better." There's no reason for him to do any of this.
He's like Mr. Halloween. So for him to suddenly break away from that, like, he needs everybody on board.
But nobody in the town has been like, "Jack, you're disgracing your background, and I can't believe you're doing this, and you're turning the town upside down." Everybody's more than happy to do it. It's like they're sheep, and Jack... Nobody is injured by the fact that Halloween is a thing. But Jack seems to have this thing where he's like, no, it's me. I need to change everything. I need to change everybody in the town because I feel that I'm missing something. So he literally goes out of his way to lie to people effectively. Like, that's the other side of it. I don't know whether Jack knows whether the thing, like, there's a difference between good and bad.
Right, yeah.
Do you get me? Like, I don't know if he knows he's the evil one out of Santa and him.
Everybody's the hero in their own story, right?
That's it. Like, they never explain, because this is where I get down to the fact that them calling everything terrible, meaning great, raises the question that when they say, we love to scare the shit out of people and frighten children, do they think that's equal to, like, Santa giving presents?
Yeah.
You know, do they think that their contribution to the scare is actually like, oh no, that's a good thing?
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think it backs you up when they are giving the presents and what they give as presents.
But here's the other side of it, because their understanding of what a good thing is, like, Jack is trying to emulate his vision. He was there. He's seen Christmas Town. He's seen exactly what he wants. Whereas everybody is seeing it through Jack's lens, and they think, okay, well, like a wooden duck with razor sharp teeth and bleeding eyes that chases you around your house on Christmas Day. Yeah, I'd like to get that. You know, that like, they're not putting it in there out of malice.
No.
They're not going, haha, exactly. This will kill children. They're putting it in there to gift them the fear or the love of fear.
And he's going around the town going, you're welcome.
That's it. You know? There's, you know, launching fireworks. Whoa, you nearly hit us there. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, in their world, there is no good or evil. Like, they are good for all intents and purposes, but they don't understand the difference between good and evil, where Santa does. Like, and again, this raises more questions.
I did not go this deep into that movie.
What?
I did not go this deep into the movie.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like, Jack's interpretation, like, his worldview is that there's no wrong or right. The world that he lives in, no people are starving, or there's no poor people. Like, there's no reason for him to feel bad at all. He's sad for no reason at all. Sally's probably the worst off out of everybody. She's like being abused. She throws herself out of towers.
Unrequited love.
But it's like she is like this dead look in her eyes. You know, she's like broken. And again, over and over again, we see the theme for her being a broken woman. Falling apart, but she's like,
literally,
she falls out of the tower later on, and she starts like stitching herself together, no bother. It's like,
and
I've been here before.
It's like picking herself up, putting herself back together. Right. You know, so it goes both ways. Yeah, she's a broken woman, she's falling apart, but she picks herself up and puts herself back together.
But that's what I'm talking about. So
actually, yeah, because now that I've said that, there's the first part where she loses her arm.
Yeah.
He has it, Finkelstein has it, but he has to sew it back on her.
Because he's in charge. But she knows how to sew and how to do all of this. Like I said, that's the controlling.
It's an interesting...
That is good. I like that part. I didn't think of that before, because like, she's bound up in this like table thing, isn't she? Like, at that point, I think that's earlier in the movie. Yeah.
It's the first time that she unthreads her arm, but he's the one that puts it back on her.
And he
that's
does
an
say
interesting
that.
Dynamic shift.
I'm the only one that can put you back together. I made you, like, that's the thing. Like, I made you who you are effectively.
Watch this from a very different point of view the next time.
Putting an adult spin on these children's movies.